Hi everybody, my name is Debbie and I'm on the creative design team at Sizzix, and I'm here to share with you some of our new Chapter 2 range of texture rolls, some tips and tricks that hopefully you'll enjoy and have some fun playing with and creating some new projects. So if you're familiar with our texture rolls, you know that they normally came originally 12 inches by 48 inches, which is a great size, and it gives you all sorts of materials that you can work with to create different projects. But we figured, hey, what if you want something a little more compact that would be perfect for traveling or toting around, bringing more than one color that wouldn't take up too much room? So our Chapter 2 range of texture rolls are the 6-inch by 48 inches. So the length is exactly the same. However, the width is perfect for your standard Big Shot machine and your Big Shot fold-away machine. 6-inch opening of the machine, 6-inch width of the texture rolls. So they come in the tan, the white, the gold, and the rose gold. So the colors are identical. The only one that we don't have in this range is the cork, but the length is exactly the same, 48 inches, but you get the width is just the 6 inches, and it's perfect. The amount of things that you can cut and create from this, and if you're familiar with the texture rolls, you know that once it is embossed, the image is so strong, especially with our 3D embossing folders, that when you mist it, and I'll show you that in a minute, when you mist it or scrunch it up, it gives you some great finishes, a great effect with any of your makes. You're going to absolutely love it. So I'm going to walk you through some of the projects, or just a couple projects, and also show you a few techniques that I like. But the width is the best. It's perfect. You could just throw some of these in your carry-on, do some things on your trip. If you want to put your sidekick machine over your tray table in front of you on a flight, since hopefully we all get to travel soon, it's a great size that creates some wonderful projects that you'd be able to use, and real handy and perfect sizing. So this is just a little project that I created. It's using our confetti pocket, just using the pocket die, and I used our tan texture roll. So the tan texture rolls almost this kind of reminds me a little bit of a leather, actually. And when you mist it and crunch it up, it kind of gives it a little effect of it being an actual little sack. So with any of the embossing or any of your die cutting, you can distress it with some inks after you emboss it, or rough it up with any kind of oils, and it just gives a great finished project. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that you are able to sew on this. So that's another project that I'm going to show you. I'm not going to bring out my sewing machine, but I'll just show you a little technique that I did just to let you know that it is something that you can sew, and the needles go right through. It's not too thick. But once it's softened with your water, if you mist it lightly, scrunch it up. It gives it a great technique. It softens the fibers, and you're able to kind of just give it a little something to add a little fun to your project. So let me just walk you through a few different things that I've created, and then I'll show you how I made this little bag. So showing you how well it embosses, I'm going to show you using our 3D embossing folder that is called an impresslet. So if you're familiar with these, it has the framelit inside of it, but it's also framing around a 3D embossed image. So this is a medallion, and it cuts and embosses in one pass. I like to run it through a couple times just because I want to have a strong image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through how I created this. So I'm going to show you, this is something that I had done. I used the same impresslet, and then when it was all done being embossed and cut, I ran some of the Ranger Distress paint over it and let it dry, and it just gives a really nice little finish on it. Kind of looks antiquish. So it depends on what color you add to it. I use the speckled egg. So let me just show you how beautifully this embosses. I'm just going to mist it a little bit with just some water. So if I misted it on this side, it's just going to roll off because this is a glossy finish. I'm going to mist the back side. Now, all of our texture rolls have this back side that's not finished, and this is the part that will soften the fiber when it's soaked in there. The only ones that don't have that would be the tan and the white, and it also has it on both sides. So you could kind of pretty much saturate the entire thing. So I'm just going to emboss this one off to the side so it doesn't get all over the camera. So I just misted it, not embossed it. So I misted it a little bit just to kind of soak it into the back side of this. So it's damp, the fibers are softened, and it's ready to go. It wouldn't bother anything if you did it on this front side. It just doesn't really affect it at all because it's not as porous as the back side. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna go ahead, and I would like to always remember, you're gonna put the good side against the blade, especially for something like this, because you want the image to protrude through the good side. So here's the good side against the blade. And that's just a good rule to remember when you're going to be doing some kind of a sentiment or any kind of a letter, because you want it to be, you don't want it to be backwards. So what I'm gonna do is, just as if how on your, if you're doing any kind of 3D, it shows you that's the level that you're gonna do it on this back. So you don't need your thin die adapter. You don't need this one on there. And it'll show you exactly on here what you need to do. So here's your sandwich. You're gonna put your, and this is, even though it's cutting, you also have an embossing folder. That's why you need to act as if you're only embossing. And then you just need one cutting pad. And since the fibers are softened, I just still like to run it through a couple times. You don't have to, but just something that I like to do. Let me stand up to give it all my might. A couple times just to get a nice strong impression. I really don't have to, I just like to. Okay. So here's the back side. And then of course my die pick, because I don't want to ruin any of my pieces here. I've got this one here. Did the other one fall off? Oh, there it is. Look how beautifully that embossed. And here the other one fell out over there. So there's that. How perfect is that? So if I did it the other way, if I laid my finished side, the silver side, against this side, the image would be the opposite. So it would be similar to this. So it depends on which side you want to do the distressed pattern or the distressed paint. I just like to do it on the part that has the most raised. So I'm just going to do a little dab, just put a little puddle on the back side of my trash here. And then just with my finger, I'm just going to rub it lightly over the area that is raised. And you see it kind of taking effect. You could do multiple layers, especially if you know that it's going to dry and you want it to be stronger after that. You can keep going and going, and I can imagine how pretty it would be if I did black or a darker color, but I just like this soft speckled egg blue on top of the silver. How pretty is that? So that's one technique, and then look, you got a bonus one, so you could do it 2 different times. So that's that technique that I thought you would appreciate and like to see. The next one that I'm going to do is using one of our more intricate card fronts. So this is one of our dies. It's an intricate die. It's a thinlet, and it has a lot of detail on it. I just want you to see how beautifully it does cut using our texture rolls. So I have a piece of the rose gold, and like I said before, I'm going to lay it down with the good side against the blade. Let me clean off my finger here. Okay, so since this is an intricate die, I want to make sure that it cuts all the pieces and parts. So I'm going to use my precision base plate just to make sure. So this is blade against this. It's not going to cut through this. You want to make sure you're going to cut it onto this area. So you have your paper or whatever you're cutting. This is obviously, since this is about the texture roll, that's what I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down. It's just going to be off a little bit because I just grabbed a little scrap here. Actually, maybe I'll do here. This one matches up better. So I have a piece of the rose gold, or this is the basic gold. This is the gold texture roll. I'm going to have the blade against the gold. What I like to do is have it at an angle so it doesn't affect your machine or your die. It just gives a longer lasting die if you have it slightly at an angle so the roller hits a point or a rounded area first instead of going like this, because you'll notice it'll be harder to turn it and your machine might jump a little bit. Doesn't ruin anything. It just gives you a little longer life to your blades if you're able to adjust it and have it at an angle. But how perfect. This is a 6-inch piece of my texture roll. So this new chapter 2 size range is perfect for this machine especially. So I'm gonna go ahead, run it through, and it probably would help if I had the thin die adapter on here. And if you notice that since I am cutting, they'll show me exactly on here what I need to do. I'll turn it so you can see it that way if you're not familiar with our adapter pad. It'll show you all the sandwich levels and stages that you need to lay it down. So since I'm using the precision base plate, I do not need a cutting pad at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, run this through. And there's so many blades that it's a little taut, but I'm going to go through one more time just to make sure. Not necessary, like I said, I just like to be sure. So you can just kind of see how it doubled up just a little bit, and that lets you know it cut. Peel it off. And you can see how it's all coming out. The parts that don't come out, I would just use my die pit. And since this has almost like almost feel like the texture rolls have a thread in them. That's what I like about it. So it doesn't tear. So that's another beauty about the texture rolls. You can scrunch it up, you can ball it up, you can dampen it, you can paint it. No matter what you do, it does not tear. It'll sew, it'll cut, but it does not tear. So that's how beautifully that cut out. And let me just show you one I had already cut out earlier. So this is how perfectly it cut out. I mean, adding that, putting some adhesive sheets on the back before you cut it, add it to a card front, that's all you need. The beauty of this. And it's just almost soft. You don't hear it like crinkling like you would paper. And it just has a beautiful, beautiful finish to it. I just absolutely love that. So that's showing you doing it that way. Another beauty about this is, well, you saw how I had done the embossing and the cutting with the impresslet. Let me just show it to you how it would look if I just cut a full panel. So here's one of our 3D embossing folders. I'm going to take this off because I'm not going to be cutting it and it's not an intricate die. Since I'm embossing, I also don't need this anymore. But I do need my mister. So like I said before, I'm just going to mist it a little bit. Just on the back side. I do need 2 cutting pads. So I'm going to put this in here. So you want to see which area is the part that's either, some people call it positive and negative, some people call mountains and valleys. Whatever part is going to protrude up into your material, that's the part that you're going to have against. So the wrong side is against the positive. So I'm going to run that through. And since I moistened it with the water, I'm able to soften the fibers and the image is going to be absolutely beautiful. And we just like to do it a few times. Just the more pressure and the more times you run it through with the, oops, excuse me, it was a little loud. With the, since it's been wet, this image is so strong and gorgeous. I mean, check that out. Isn't that beautiful? So something that I had done before using the same idea, if I wanted to, say I wanted this design to be cut out into a heart shape, I'm not going to now go and cut the heart, because if I did that, if I already had the embossed design and I wanted to go ahead and cut a heart or an oval, just say, here's an oval, see how I pressed it down? The image is still there, but it's not as strong because it went through the machine again just to die cut it. So it depends on what you want. If you just want it to be just kind of subtle and faint, go ahead and do that. Emboss the full panel and then cut your shape and it'll still be there. It just won't be as evident or as strong. But if you did want to do it, here's the same idea that I had done. I first cut the heart. Just took the heart, ran it through the machine and cut the heart. Then I put the heart inside the embossing folder so the image stayed strong. So if you can see the difference, after it's already embossed and then cut the shape, or cut the shape and run it through. So no matter what, even if this is already hard, you still want to soften your shape with the water and run it through the machine. So that's just showing you it done that way. Another technique that I also love is using our emboss and transfer set. So this is our silicone rubber and this is our impressions pad. It comes as a set. It's something that you could use to die cut any of your intricate dies, but instead of die cutting it, Using these two pieces instead of a second cutting pad, it gives you an embossed design. So this is what I wanted to share with you. So I took our white texture roll and I ran it through the machine to die cut this heart. Once the die cut heart was finished, I used this piece that comes with that die set, and I ran it through on top of the already cut heart, and I'll show it to you, with these two pieces to create an embossed design. So if you can see there, that's what I had done to create the embossed design, and then using our oil pastels, I ran it over the top just to create just a little technique, just to give it a little embellished pizzazz and just kind of finish it off. Now, don't judge my sewing technique because I'm not a sewer, as you can see. But the great part about this heart is it has a little edge, so it was a little bit able to guide me a little bit, but this part kind of had a little mess. But I'll put my thumb there so you don't see it. Anyway, so as you can see, instead of die cutting this detailed piece, I was able to emboss it. And let me just show you how that worked. So I'm going to put this back on here because I'm going to die cut my heart. I need a cutting pad on the bottom. I'm going to put my heart there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and run it through. So there's my heart. Okay, that's using the white texture roll. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take this, since I'm not cutting anymore, I'm just embossing. And what happens is with this, it softens the pressure from the machine. So you're not having two cutting pads, you're just having one on the bottom and these two pieces instead. So to soften it up like before, I'm going to mist both sides because the white has the same finish on both sides, so it's very porous on both sides, so that'll help a lot with the embossing. Now you could still do this with paper, in case you were curious. So I have the cutting pad on the bottom, and it'll show you just exactly how I need to do it. So if you could tell, it has the cutting pad, the blade up, the material that I'm cutting, the silicone rubber, and then the cutting pad on top, or sorry, the impressions pad on top. So I have that. I'm going to use my detailed heart directly on top of the cutting pad. Oops. Cutting pad, the heart. Turn it this way so it's better for you guys to see. And then I'm going to lay my material on top. Since I'm embossing only the heart, not a full sheet, like the image shows, they're just showing you full sheet. And then I'm going to put the silicone rubber on there. I'm going to hold this down so it doesn't shift. And the pressure from the machine does move your rubber a little bit, but that's okay as long as it stays over your design the entire time. And then no other cutting pad, your impressions pad is all you need. And you don't hear any crackling because it's so soft, and especially since I soften the fibers with the water. So if you can see that, see how beautiful? It actually embossed instead of cut. So I'm going to take just a little bit of my oil pastel, and then I'm just going to rub it on top. You can do it on here and rub it on, just lightly, and then just kind of spread it around with your finger, and it just gives that beautiful finish. And I combined a couple colors at a time. Just to create kind of a two-tone effect. And it spreads beautifully. And since it's a little bit damp, it is able to move around a little bit more. So that just gives you another technique on how to create that. So that's that. And then let me show you my last one, and that is cutting the, doing the little pocket to create that little sack. So I'm going to take my thin die adapter. I have a piece of the tan texture roll, the 6-inch. This is our chapter 2, like I said, the chapter 2 range of texture rolls. And if you stay tuned, in the next release, there's a couple surprises that we think you're gonna love. So you're already having fun with the texture rolls now. Just wait, my friends. So let me go ahead and cut this. This is, like I said, the confetti pocket, and I'm just using the little pocket. Okay, so what I did is I cut it first. Obviously, you can see that. Let me put this machine off to the side. And then I'm going to mist it. So I'm just going to completely mist this just to soften it up a bit. And then I just kind of like to roll it around with my hand just to get a little, just to soften it up a little bit. So you can make sure that it does soften the fibers and you're able to manipulate it a little bit. And just ball it up, open it up, and ball it up. Just kind of ball it up like a piece of paper. And it's funny, you don't hear the crackling noise like you normally would for a balled up piece of paper. But this, as you can see, it will not tear. I mean, I'm really trying here. It does cut beautifully, as you could see before, but it does not tear. So just balling it up multiple times and opening it up and then reballing it, it just kind of gives a cool leather effect. Okay, so if you remember, this is the little pocket here. You're going to fold it again. So what I would do is I would adhere it, but since it's damp, I can't, the glue, it'll take a little longer to dry and I won't be able to manipulate it. And then also with it being damp, it won't, the adhesive, double-sided adhesive roller will not stick. It has to be dry. So I did use my express glue on this one, but it'll take a little longer to dry because it's wet on wet. But just so you can get an idea, is you just adhere it down to there like that. And then you fold that up this way. And I like to tuck this in or trim it. It's up to you. So that this extra flap. So close that up there like that, adhere it. Close the bottom flap. And then tuck this one in. You don't have to adhere the one that's tucked in. And just as you're manipulating it, just kind of ball it up. And it creates just kind of a fun little leather little sack. And what I had done before is I had die cut some of our wildflowers already. And then just pre-painted them and used our oil pastels or just basic watercolor. And then I just filled it inside this little sack here. So it kind of gives it a fun little leathery technique, which is a cute little thing for springtime, for summertime, just to have on your little desk. I actually think I might keep this just because it kind of has that grungy fun look. But just look at how cool this looks. It actually looks like it is leather, which I love. Ink this up, emboss it, and then ink it up with some brown, and it also would give it just kind of an embossed, kind of like those belts we used to wear back in the day that had the tan leather embossed design in it. It gives a beautiful technique. So using any of the distress inks, you can either create something like this that I had shown you previously, or something like this with an ink. And either way, the projects that you could create, I'm sure will be amazing, and we would love to see them. So whether you're sewing, embossing, or cutting and having fun making some great little projects, we look forward to seeing what you create.